Guys, just so I feel like I should start off by with a log. I would be like, all right, day 79 in quarantine here, and this is what's going on, and kind of fill you all in, right? I hope you guys are all doing great. I've kind of changed the setup here. Usually I shoot the video from this side of the fireplace, but today I decided to shoot it from this side of the fireplace instead of using my rocking chair. I'm using one of the pieces of my couch that I usually keep in the corner behind. I just pulled it up so you can see. Right, I got the fire going today, even though there's no need for a fire outside because the sun is still shining. But I hope you're all doing well, right? So you can see the fire is about ready to die out. Well, it's not dying out, but there's no flame. So here's a trick. Gentlemen, pay attention because someday you're going to have to build a fire for your family. You may have to. Right, and this way, your wife will be like, wow, my husband's got this. And ladies, pay attention because you want to impress a man someday, right? In your marriage, this is what you do. You're just gonna, get down low and you give some air into the coals, and here comes our flame. Here we go. All right, we got a bigger flame now. Look at that, see? There we go. We got our flame. Got some on my hand. It's okay, right? Some burning hair. All right, I'll go to the hospital later for that one. But I hope you guys are all doing well. I got my rosaries here, which is what Mr. O'Brien had said we could do for the week. So I've got two. All right, the first one I have in my hands is usually one that I keep in my car. Right, this was a gift that a student gave to me. So I can get nice and close. All right, there you go. A gift that a student gave to me. She graduated last year from Kellenberg, and this came from Lourdes, France. When she went there over the summer with the Lord's mission trips that you can make at the end of your junior year. And so this is one of my favorite rosaries because she, as a young lady, had been through a lot in her life, and I was just really inspired by her faith and by her ability to overcome some really terrible tragedies that she had been through in her life. And so when she gave me this rosary, I put it in my car as a reminder of who she was, to pray for her and her continued healing. But also to use in the morning when I pray my rosary on the way to work. All right? And then also what you'll notice, right, I have another rosary which hangs up here on the fireplace. Since we've been in quarantine, after the first week, I said to my wife in the morning, I was like, I got to get out. I'm missing my daily rosary in the car. So what I do is every morning, I wake up at 7:30. Me and the dog and Emma, my 1-year-old, we go for a walk. Right, she's in the stroller, and Abby walks next to me, and I say my rosary. Right, and the reason why I use this one is because I really like wooden rosaries, right, that are a little bit bigger, because it reminds me of the humble beginnings that Jesus came from, right, as a carpenter. He wouldn't have had gold or silver or anything like that, but he would have known how to use wood, and so this is just kind of like a reminder to me of the humble beginnings of what Jesus came from, and to always thank God for the things that He's given me. All right, so my fire is dying out, all right, because the air is starving. So we'll leave it though for now, right? I could poke it. We'll see how this goes, right? But those are my two rosaries. I got another mug, right? Another mug. Just so you know, here goes. It was a gift from my wife. There was only one of these ever made. Only one in the whole world was made, and I got it. Look at that, right? Because it wouldn't be true if there was more than one ever made. So, but and of course, comes from the best TV show. I mean, come on. Once they get rid of it on Netflix, there's really no reason to keep Netflix because The Office is where it is. All right. So, I hope you guys are doing well. We're gonna take a look here at section 42 today, and section 43. Okay. So the first section, 42, is so short. It's 4 verses, excuse me. I don't know how to count. Let's read it. Okay? Now this, if we're following Luke's gospel, this story comes exactly right after Jesus had just given the parable of the Good Samaritan, which is what Mr. O'Brien spoke about yesterday. All right? So we're just following along Luke's gospel now. It says, as they continued their journey, he entered a village where a woman whose name was Martha welcomed him. Now, what's the name of the village? All right, because this is important. All right, what's the name of the village? The name of the village is Bethany. All right, which is going to give us some hints, right? That Bethany, right? This is the place of Martha and Mary, who are the sisters of Lazarus. Right, the sisters of Lazarus. Okay. So verse 39, right? It just says there's this woman named Martha. She had a sister named Mary. There you go. See, look at that. Jumping the gun, telling you the names of the sisters. All right? Who sat beside the Lord at his feet, listening to him speak. All right? Martha, burdened with much serving, came to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? Tell her to help me. I mean, this is like typical sibling rivalry. This is something that happens all the time. Right? Here's the scenario, right? You've got Martha and Mary, they welcome Jesus into their house. Okay? Mary is just sitting on the couch, talking to Jesus, hanging out, and enjoying his presence. How are you doing? All this kind of stuff. Well, Martha is like running around the house berserko, going crazy to make sure there's enough food, everything's cleaned, and everything is right. She's so worried about the hospitality that she's not actually spending time with her guest. All right? Now, how can we kind of correlate this to everyday society? Right now, when you host a party, when you host people at your house, it's actually difficult, right? Like it's hard because there's a fine line between making sure your guests feel welcomed by making sure that your house is clean, there's enough food to eat, there's enough drinks to drink, that there are dishes there, that they have everything that they need in order to feel as though they were welcomed while you were there, but also making sure that you are present to them during the party. Right? Imagine you go to your friend's house and they say to you when you walk in, oh yeah, just sit over there, I'll go in the other room and make some lunch. And after 25 minutes, they come back with a sandwich. And you're like, where you been? Right? This is awkward. I just sat on your couch and stared at the wall for 25 minutes. Right? But at the same time, someone says, hey, why don't you come over for lunch? And you get there, and there's no food. It's also awkward. Right? So there's this delicate balance between the action, right, and spending the time. Martha's not getting this, right? And so she complains, hey, Jesus, tell Mary to get off her hump, right, and to come into the kitchen and help me work. And you're expecting Jesus to say, you know what, Mary? Your sister needs some help. Can you get up and help her? But he doesn't. Ha! This is so cool, right? This is so cool. Jesus says to Martha, 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 you are anxious and worried about many things. Now that right there, right? Right, it's as if he could be speaking to me. Moran, you are anxious and worried about many things. Right, like right now during this time period, I mean, there is so much for us to be anxious about. There's so many things for us to be worried about. Right, you can put your own name right there. Moran, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. And Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her. Right? Do you see this? Jesus is saying, look, hey, when you're anxious, when you're worried, there is only need of one thing. And that one thing is me. Right? I don't care about all this hospitality stuff that's running around that you're doing. I just want to spend time with you. And that's the truth with Jesus, right? He just wants to spend time with us in this relationship. Right? Now, from a larger allegorical standpoint, right, St. Gregory the Great says that Martha and Mary both represent the two aspects of the Christian life, the contemplative aspect and the active aspect. Right? The active is exactly what it sounds like. Right? This is all down in the Catholic Faith Facts down below. All right, so you can read along. Right? The active life is exactly what it sounds like. It's the corporal works of mercy, the feeding the hungry, the giving drink to the thirsty, the clothing the naked, the visiting the imprisoned. All right, the giving shelter to the homeless. It's the doing aspect of all this. Right? St. James in his letter says, faith without works is dead. Right? It's the putting into action of your faith. That's a very important part of the Christian life. All right? However, Mary, which is the higher of the two, right? Because Jesus is saying she's chosen the better part, is the contemplative. Right? That part of the Christian life where we just spend time in communication and in prayer life with God. Right? You see, because, right, if we're not praying, if we're not in communication with God, then are we really in a relationship with Him? There's this great story about Mother Teresa. Now, Mother Teresa, when I was growing up, was a giant. Not like a real giant. She was only like 4'9", but like a spiritual giant. Everyone knew who she was. She died when I was in 6th grade. And somebody asked her one time, right, because her daily routine was such where she would wake up and she would spend 3 hours in adoration in the morning. 3 hours before the Blessed Sacrament in the morning. And then she would go out, care for the sick. She would literally be picking up people who were dying from the gutters of the streets of Calcutta in India, bringing them to a hospital that she created to help them and to give them some dignity, to give them care, to let them know that they were loved. Right? And she would do that, and then she would go back for lunch and enter into more prayer, and then she would go back out and do it again to help the people, and then she'd come back around dinner time and eat dinner, but enter into more hours of prayer. Right? And she said she would spend about 6 hours a day in adoration before the Lord. Right? And once when she was up for this big Nobel Peace Prize, right, haters are going to hate, and so people started saying to her, like, well, couldn't you do more throughout your day if you weren't spending all that time in front of the Blessed Sacrament, if you weren't spending all that time praying, right? Think about that. Here's a woman who's saving countless lives, and they have the audacity to say to her, well, we think you could be doing more, but you're spending it in time in prayer. And she looked at them and said, if it wasn't for those hours in adoration, in contemplation, in prayer, and glory, giving glory to God, I wouldn't be able to do everything else. Right? You see, the Christian life is twofold. It's the prayer, the contemplative side, and it's the active side, the doing side. Right? And Jesus here, along with and St. Gregory kind of bring this out further, says that the contemplative side is the higher side. Because when we get to heaven, that's the only side that's going to be left. Right? And I say to my students that someday, you want to know what heaven's like? Heaven is just you adoring God all day long. Does that sound fun? Does that sound fun? Right? If you don't practice it now, then you're not going to be ready for heaven. Right? You're not going to be ready for heaven. All right, so practice it. Okay? So that's Martha and Mary. Number 2. Right? Turn the page down to section 43, the parable of the lost sheep. There's 2 parables here. So let's take a look at both of them. Right? It says, chapter 15, verse 1, the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to listen to him. But the Pharisees and scribes began to complain, saying, this man welcomes sinners and eats with them. Once again, the Pharisees don't like that Jesus is associating himself with people that don't behave and don't obey the laws of Moses. Right? So he knows what they're thinking. Right? And he addressed them a parable. He said, what man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, would not leave the 99 in the desert and go after the one lost until he finds it? And when he does find it, he sets his shoulders the great joy, and upon his arrival home, he calls together his friends and neighbors and says to them, rejoice with me because I have found my lost sheep. Right? I tell you, the same way, there'll be more joy in heaven for one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need for repentance. All right, so I'm glad I got to do this lesson because out here, right, in God's country, Suffolk County, right, we have some farms. I don't know if you guys have ever been around sheep. I haven't. Actually, I have. My parents, believe it or not, this is a crazy story. My parents had a vacant piece of property next to our house when we were little kids, and we had sheep on the lot, and they had to get rid of them. They weren't our sheep. They were a customer from their store who needed to keep them somewhere, so my parents let them use the fields. And they had to get rid of them because when me and my brother got older and started walking around the field, the sheep, well, the male sheep, the ram, started to chase us, right, and try to get us. So they had to get rid of the sheep. But anyways, sheep, they're not really like aggressive animals. They're very passive. They're not like go-getters. They kind of stick around, but they're very loyal. All right? So there's a few things here going on. Number 1, sheep, they like to stay with the fold, but at the same time, they tend to just kind of wander off. But when they wander off and they get lost and they can't see the flock anymore, they just sit down and start bellowing, right? They just start making noise. That's kind of what I tell my hiking club members to do when we're on a hike. Right? I tell them, if you're hiking and you feel like you're lost and you can't see anybody in front or behind you, just sit down and we'll come find you, right? So it'd be like the lost sheep, just sit down, right? And then the shepherd would go find them, would leave the other 99, right? You see, because it was most likely that sheep didn't necessarily belong to him, right? Because it belonged to another member of the community that they had hired to him to give, or right, that this was part of the larger family inheritance or estate, because the shepherd was usually the youngest son, or this was the food source for the entire community. All right, and so the shepherd would have left the 99, right, with one or two other shepherds, or in the safety of their sheepfold, to go out and find the sheep. And when it found the sheep wouldn't move, right? Because when the sheep gets lost, they know it. They sit down and they tense up and they refuse to move until they see the fold. And so literally, the shepherd has to go out in search of the sheep. The sheep didn't ask to be saved. The shepherd goes and finds it. And when it finds the sheep can't even find its way back. The shepherd will literally put it on its shoulder and carry it back to the flock. Right? And you see, that's kind of what God is doing for us. You see, God is out there and he's looking for the lost sheep. He's looking for the people who have tensed up and have sat down and said, help, I'm sorry, I need help. And he says, I got you. And he throws you on his shoulders and he brings you back to the fold, back to his kingdom. Right? And that's what it says in verse 7. I tell you that there is more rejoicing in heaven over one repentant sinner than over 99 righteous people. This is almost kind of like a knock at the Pharisees, right? Because the Pharisees would have felt themselves to be righteous. And what he's saying here is, there's no rejoicing in heaven over somebody who thinks they're righteous. Right? Because in reality, none of us are righteous. We all are in need of a Savior. And when I think, I'm good, I got this, there's no rejoicing in heaven as a result of that. Because we're admitting that we don't need God. We don't need a Savior, which we all do. But for that one repentant sinner, God's all in. All right, parable of the lost coin. Well, what woman having 10 coins and losing one would not light a lamp and sweep the house, searching carefully until she finds it? Right, so 10 coins. Each coin, right, would have represented about a day's worth of wages. That's a lot of money. Right? So think about it. If you get paid $100 a day, this is like saying if you lost a $100 bill, right? You make $500 a week, you lose a $100 bill. You're not going to find that. You're not going to go searching through your pants pockets and through your car and through everything, like the washing machine, looking for that $100 bill. Of course you are. And when you find it, you're going to be like, yeah, I have $100. Right? But here we go. Right? She sweeps the house and carefully until she finds it. And when she does find it, she calls together her friends and neighbors and says to them, rejoice with me because I found the coin that I lost. In just the same way, I tell you, they'll be rejoicing among the angels of God over the one sinner who repents. Right? And like mathematically, this doesn't make sense, right? Because she throws this big party, which probably costs more than the coin itself. But it's the idea here that Jesus is saying, right, that heaven rejoices when we say we're sorry. And not just God, but the angels and the saints. They all rejoice with us because they know that's the way in which we obtain salvation. Right? A few years ago, I kind of came to this realization that the Christian life is not necessarily about being perfect every day. It's more so sometimes about recognizing our imperfection and saying, God, I am just sorry. Sorry for the things that I've done. Sorry for the ways that I've fallen short. And I'm going to continue to try to do better so that I always live up to your standards. All right? So there we go. Parable of the 10 coins, the lost coin, parable of the lost sheep, and Marth and Mary. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. I'm glad you could share this afternoon, morning, evening, whenever it is that you're watching this with me from the Moran Island Estate out here in beautiful Suffolk County. Quarantine day, I don't even know, a lot. We'll see, go from there. All right, so have a wonderful day. You have the assessment coming right after this in Schoology, so make sure you get that done. That's due Thursday morning. All right, guys, have a great day. Moran out.